Idi Mnangagwa nekutora chigaro chekutungamirira SADC. Izvi zviri pachena kuti zvakakonzerwa nei. Hongu SADC chairmanship iri rotational, but pane mapoints ari kuita kuti chigaro chauya kuna president wedu His Excellency Mnangagwa chive chine chiremera. Chinhu chekutanga, Mr. President, ndechekuti nyika yeZimbabwe ichitungamirirwa navaMnangagwa ine zvinhu zvayaita zvisina kumboitwa mune dzimwe nyika. Chekutanga ndechekuti ndisi tega muSouthern Africa tine education 5.0, hakuna vamwe vanacho. Chechipiri, ndisi tega muSouthern Africa tine agricultural system ine 8.0, hakuna imwe nyika muSouthern Africa ina izvozvo. Chetatu, kuuya kwakaita vaMnangagwa kuzotonga nyika yeZimbabwe kwakavhura magedhi ekuti tikwanise kudyidzana nekufambidzana nedzimwe nyika, iyaya tirikudainza kuti engagement and re-engagement. Kune nyika dzakarwiwa hondo tikatora kana outside SADC, hakuna vakamboita pronounce position yekuti tiruda kuita engage or re-engage my old friends. Takangopinda kungonotonga tisina kuita izvozvo. Saizvozvo tichaona kuti kubvira pakapinda vaMnangagwa muchigaro tine mikana mikuru yavhurika. Mukana mukuru yavhurika ndeyekuti veEU as a block vakabva vati zvemasanctions bodo kwasara ma-individual countries. Saka chinhu chihombe ichocho chakatirakita kuti tikwanise kuwana chigaro ichocho. Chetatu, mabusinessmen ekuAmerica nekuBritain, kunyangwe America ichakatipa zvirango, mabusinessmen avo ari kuuya kuzoita invest munyika yeZimbabwe. Zvinoreva kuti kugara nekugara, nyaya dzemabasa nenyaya dzekuti ikonomi yedu ikure zvichange zvichienderera mberi. Kana dai zvazvo tisati tane full freedom yekuita economic empowerment, but you find kuti IMF neWorld Bank pachavo vari kutotaura kuti Zimbabwe si economy iri kukura kudarika dzimwe nyika dzemuSouthern Africa. Tobva ikoko toya muno munyika, mukaenda kunonzi kuCleveland Industrial Park muno muHarare, after Masasa tichienda kuMabvuku, tikanoona development iriko handisakamboiona muno munyika within a short period of time, handisati ndaiona. Saka zvinorakidza kuti isisu tiri kufamba, tiri kubudirira, tiri kuita zvinhu zvinoita kuti dzimwe nyika dzitiyemure kuti tiri kuita zvinhu zvakanaka. Chechina, kubvira pakatanga vatingati vanhu vari kuda kupandukira hurumende yeMozambique kuCabo Delgado, kune vanhu vakawanda vakafa. Isisu senyika yeZimbabwe tikavolontiya senyika tichitungamirirwa naHis Excellency vaMnangagwa kuti tinofanira kuenda kunodzidzisa hama dzedu dzekuMozambique kuti hondo dzakaita saidzodzo dzinorwiwa sei, since isisu takamboenda kunoirwa hondo yakafanana naiyoyo kuDR Congo. Ndokondinya regerai ndienderere mberi. Mr. President, tikaona kukura kuri kuita ikonomi yedu yemuno muZimbabwe kusvika patigereko zvinezvi, tiri kufamba kuenda kwatinokwanisa kuzoti chembere dzedu nevana vadiki vachakwanisa kunge vachichengetwa nehurumende sezviri kuitwa kune dzimwe nyika. Asi handisi tega muSADC tiri kutadza kuchengeta chembere. Chikonzero chiri kutitadzisa chengeta chembere dzedu chiri pachena. Hatigone kuchengeta chembere dzedu economy isiri kufamba zvakanaka iri pamasanctions. But semazira andinoita inini, economy ikangokura zvinoreva kuti mitero ichaenda kuhurumende, inoita kuti hurumende iwane mari yekuita zvatiri kuda kuti zviitwe munyika yeZimbabwe. Ndinoziva kuti tichapedzesera takuchengeta chembere dzedu, kunyangwe nevari disabled, kunyangwe nevamwe vari vulnerable munyika muno. Chekupedzesera Mr. President ndechekuti tingatarise zviri muHarare, handimo mega muri kuitwa development. Tikatarisa kwaishangani iri kutoyemurwa nedzimwe nyika, because nyika dzakatitenderedza muSADC hapana vari kukwanisa kuita dhamu rakaita sairoro. Hapana. Tine rimwe zvakare dhamu riri muna Zambezi pagoji, Devil's Gorge, riri tori paplani yekuti tiri chere. Madhamu avakwa so far in the last 7 years anodarika madhamu akanga aitwa munyika muno in the last 15-20 years. Madhamu akawanda, madhamu atakagara nhaka before independence ndo akazara muno, but hurumende yavaMnangagwa yachera madhamu akawanda muchinguva chipfupfu. Zvinozorakidza kuti dzimwe nyika tinogona kunge takutodzibatsira. Chekupedzesera Mr. President ndechekuti chikafu chemuno muZimbabwe, muSouthern Africa, muSADC hamuna imwe nyika ine witi senyika yeZimbabwe. Imwe nyika muAfrica ingangosebera padhuze nesu Ethiopia. Tikaenda kuEurope, imwe nyika ingangosebera nesu Ukraine neRussia. Saka izvozvo zvega zvinopa mukana wokuti utungamiri hweZimbabwe huve utungamiri hunoyemurwa nevamwe, kunyange tiine matambudziko edu. Asi chokwadi chiripo ndechekuti pane zvaitika zvinopa kodzero yekuti isisu senyika tichitungamirirwa navaMnangagwa tinge tichitora chigaro cheSADC chechairman. Mazviita Mr. President.
Mazviita Honorable Senator Gotora nemashoko enyu. Is there any further debate? Honorable Senator Ushitai.
Mr. President, I wish to express my appreciation and gratitude for the opportunity you have afforded me to contribute to this very important debate. A congratulatory discourse for the President for being the new chairperson of SADC. Mr. President, I will start my discussion. A story of a king in Europe who found himself a damsel, a beautiful girl, a virgin, and married her. And they lived together and had a family, had children. Were very happy for a very, very long time. And all looked very well in the house because the king was happy, the wife was happy, the children who were born into that marriage were very happy. They were royal. But one day the king went for a party, and a dancing partner told the chief that his mouth was stinging. And when the king went back home, he asked his wife why she had not told him that he needed oral therapy before he joined others in important meetings. And the wife had a very honest answer that she knew nothing else. What else did she know? She perhaps thought all men were like that because she had no other experience. The moral of this story, Mr. President, is that it's more patriotic to be able to tell truth to power. It's a happier situation if we tell things not in a monologue, not monochromatically, just to say everything is well. It's more appropriate for us to say things as they are. Mr. President, I therefore rise to give a slightly different perspective. I'm very pleased that one of our own is now the leader of SADC. And one of our own is His Excellency, who also happens to be my homeboy. So I'm very pleased about it. But I'm very patriotic to it, so that I tell a truth. Mr. President, there is a curse around these big visitations in this country. In 1991, the Commonwealth heads of government gathered here in Zimbabwe for the Choga meeting. And the Queen of England visited together with that process. And what we saw in that period is a problem that has not been solved up to today. The citizens of this country, the children, the sons and daughters of Zimbabwe, were pushed out of the Harare streets and dumped at Potter Farm in Norton to pave way, to create an image of all good to the Queen and to Choga. And I don't think it's proper that this happens, that we trample upon human rights to please outsiders. To date, Mr. President, we are still saddled with the problem of this big visitation of the King and Choga with Hopley Farm, Caledonia, all these informal settlements are a direct product of a desire to please foreigners ahead of our own people. So, Mr. President, what was the reward? The reward was that the former president was knighted. He was given honors by the king. But there was a lot of suffering on the part of the people of Zimbabwe, the citizens of this country. Fast forward to the new dispensation and the assumption of the chairpersonship of SADC. History is important. I know there is some disquiet in certain corners, but I feel very honestly happy that I'm saying this, because I believe it's good for our country. So SADC came, and history repeated itself. And one garrulous senator said to the nation that now that SADC is over, Timber and the 78 can be freed. And it's there in the public domain, telling the whole world that there is interference with the judiciary, telling the whole world that we can sacrifice the rights of the sons and daughters of Zimbabwe on the altar of wanting to be good to the external people. Hear me, Mr. President. Mr. President, as we assume these important positions, it must be alive to us that it's important to honor the rights of the sons and daughters of Zimbabwe. So SADC came with injuries. SADC caused a lot of pain. SADC ascension to power caused a lot of pain. 78 people are languishing in prison for no reason except to want to look good to the foreigners. It's a shame, Mr. President, that we can sacrifice important rights enshrined in the Constitution, rights to gather, rights to speak out against what we feel is not right. These are rights that are guaranteed in our Constitution. These are rights that were fought for in our Constitution, and they must be respected. Mr. President, let's look at other issues. I've spoken about the rights issues. Let's look at the economy. Mr. President, is it a coincidence that the ZIG has collapsed so much with the arrival of this chairpersonship? Is it a coincidence? Is there a relationship? Is there a connection between the collapse of the ZIG and the activities preceding SADC? Mr. President, I posit that it's important that as we do these iconic events, we must look at the holistic issues around the socio-economic factors that affect the people of this country. Mr. President, I honestly think that on a scale, if we weigh these things on a scale, one might think that perhaps it would have been better not to have this rotational chairpersonship of SADC. Mr. President, the speed at which I understand the celebration around the beautiful roads that were built, but the devil sits in the detail. The devil is sat very comfortably in the detail. What was the cost of these roads? We hear a lot of numbers that are flying all over the place, 1.7 billion. So we hear, whatever it is, a perception becomes a reality if somebody doesn't tell us what exactly it cost to do these roads. Did it cost us 1.7 billion? And was it correct to do that? And because when things are done in a hurry, when things are done hurriedly, certain steps that would have vaccinated against corruption are sidestepped. You know, the tendering process might have actually suffered. Was this done properly? Perhaps it was. If it was done properly, we are happy. But let's have the proof. Let the minister come here to tell us fully and in detail how much it cost us to build these roads, including Lorraine Drive, which is impassable today. Mr. President, these are some of the factors. Corruption reared its very big, ugly head and took advantage of SADC. Mr. President, I just thought I would do this, speak about this. There might be some discomforts, itchy points. Some people have got scratches to do. They can do that. But
on a point of order, Mr. President.
On a point of order.
Firstly, the honorable member is talks about issues which are before the courts, which it shouldn't be. And secondly, he's also talking very widely about corruption without specifying the areas where corruption was committed. I think we should try to restrict ourselves to facts, Honorable. That's my point of order, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. There are processes that can be done to convince me that there was no corruption at all in this process. I'm not accusing anybody, I'm just debating to say, look, when you disturb the waters, a lot of fish are catchable. Mr. President, these are the facts that I lay on the table, and I do appreciate the listenership of my colleagues. I know they are uncomfortable with this, but they have honorably listened, which I appreciate. And with this, I wish to conclude by saying, indeed, I do congratulate the President for taking up this post. He's a man who should be up there with respect to issues of human rights. He's a man who nearly went to the gallows for his beliefs. He's a man who, I believe, if properly advised, would make sure that the human rights of the people of this country will be respected, because he has got personal experience, not theoretical experience from some corners that I can understand. Thank you so much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Honorable Senator, for those remarks. With a bit of advice, you don't respond to whatever I said from anywhere. You simply address the chair and the debate flows smoothly like that. Is there any further debate?
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the debate do now adjourn.
Somebody is standing up. I recognize Honorable Senator Tomokara.
Mr. President, nekundipawo mukana uno wekuti ndikandewo mashoko mashomanene ekukorokotedza mukuru wenyika wedu nekupuwa chigaro cheusadhaki. Chairman, Mr. President, tinoziva kuti chigaro ichi chinoti chikabva kune imwe nyika choenda kune imwe, chobva kune imwe choenda kune imwe. Saka chakatenderera chichitenderera, asi kusvika kwachakaita muno muZimbabwe chichipuhwa mukuru wedu wenyika President E.D. Mnangagwa, zviri kutaridza kuti ikuwo pachanga chichitenderera apa maheads of state aingouya ari mashomanene, asi pano muno medu yakaita record yekuti kwakauya 10 heads of states out of 60. Saka chinhu chinorumbidzwa ichocho chinoratidza kuti sadhaki iriko, asi vese vanovimba neZimbabwe, zvichienda kubva kupinda kwakaita new dispensation, vaMnangagwa vedu vachipinda pachigaro ichocho. Mr. President, tinoziva tese kuti nyika kuti ibudirire inenge ichishandisa mari yayo. Kare kese kwakaedzwa kukamboya imbonzi mabhera cheki, kukamboya inzi RTG, kukauya anonzi chini. Iko zvino kwakauya zigi, vagara pasi vaona vaMnangagwa neuchenjeri hwavo kuti aiwa zvatanga tichiita zvisingaite zvakanaka, nekuti tanga tichingoti taane mari isina chakaitsigira. iko zvino mari yedu yakazotsigirwa negold dzedu, chinova chimwe chechicherwa chedu chemunyika muno, ichitsigirwazve nemari. Saka iwoyu muono unoitwa nemutungamiriri anonyatsoziva kuti nyika ifambe zvakanaka inofanirwa kunge iine mari yayo. Vazhinji vedu muno takambobuda tichienda kune dzimwe nyika. Kana wasvika munyika iyoyo, chekutanga mari yese yaunenge unayo unotanga waichinja kuti ukwanise kutiko uwane mari yemunyika iyoyo kuti ugozokwanisa kuti uite zvaunoita paunenge wafamba. Iko zvino ndo zvakaitwa munyika muno, asi here inoda mudziko ratinaro. Kune vanhu vasingadi kuona kuti zigi yedu yabudirira, zigi yedu yashanda zvakanaka. Ndosaka muchiona kutanga kwayakaita, takanga tichifara tese uchiti ukaenda uchinotenga nezigi yako troli inobva ichirembera. Asi ava vanhu vasingadi kuona Zimbabwe ichibudirira vakabva vatanga kuita zvavanoita. Iye zvinezvi maakuona kuti iko mamani changers akambenga abva mustreet, zigi ichangouya, iko zvino zvatangazve. Saka ndinongoti ini veReserve Bank vari kuzviona zvinhu izvozvo ngazvirambe zvichingogadziriswa, kuti iyesu tese tiri muno tisu tinofanirwa kuti titsigire kuti zigi yedu ifambe. Kana yadaro tichienderera mberi nemari yedu, tinoziva kuti iko nyika yedu inobudirira. Tine chishuwo sei Mr. President yekuti munhu abva kunze anotanga anochinjawo mari oshandisa mari yedu yemuno. Ndo zvinoita kuti tigonzi tiri vanhu, tigonzi tinoziva zvatiri kuita, tisingavimbi nemari dzekunze, iyo American dollar yauraya nyika ino. Iko kuriko kwatakapuwa masanctions ari kunetsa kuti hurumende yedu ienderere mberi, nekuti zvakadaro saizvozvi hatikwanise kuti tiwane malines of credit ekuti tinonokweretawo toita zvatinoita todzosera. Zvinhu zvedu zvinenge zvichifambira zvakanaka. Hakuna nyika inoranwa necash, Mr. President. Asi zvakadaro saizvozvo muno zvinhu zviri kungoendeka nekuti iko tiri kushandisa zvinhu zvedu zvatinazvo imo muno, upfumi hwedu tichihushandisa kuti nyika yedu irambe ichienderera mberi. Iko zvino takaona migwagwa yedu ichigadzirwa. Unonzwa vanotaura zvavo vasingadi kutenda vachiti nekuti kwaive nesadhaki zvayakaitwa migwagwa ikagadzirwa. Vakatakura migwagwa iyo vakaenda nayo here? Kana kuti migwagwa ndeyedu, tisu tiri kuishandisa, tisu tiri kufara kuti migwagwa yedu yagadzirwa. Chirongwa ichi chakatanga kare. Masvingo Harare Road, Mr. President, yakagadzirwa sadhaki isati yambosvika kuno. Saka ichi chirongwa chemutungamiriri ane muono unoenderera mberi, ane chido chevanhu vake pamwoyo apa. Ndosaka muchiona kuti iko zvinhu zviri kungofamba zvichingoenda. Mukaona dambudziko raive pambuzi apo tichibuda kuenda
Honorable, point of order, Honorable Spears. My point of order is Honorable Member is not properly seated. Chief Whip. My point of order is the Honorable Member, Chief Whip Gotora, is not properly seated.
Noted. Honorable member, proceed. Proceed, Honorable Senator Tongogara.
Master zvenyu, Mr. President, nekundipa mukana wekuti ndirambe ndichienderera mberi. Ndambe ndangokanganiswa zvangu. Asi zvinhu zvakanaka zviri kungoitwa nemutungamiriri wedu zviri kungoonekwa. Vanhu vanenge vaine njere, Mr. President, vanoti iko zvinhu zvanga zvakangomonyoroka. Apa pakadaka apa, panaka pari kugadzirwa apa, apa pari kugadzirwa apa. Tichienda nekuti iko zvino makaona kuti munyika muno maive nenzara.
Point of order, Mr. President.
Point of order.
I think it's unparliamentary to say vanavana njere. It's unparliamentary, Mr. President, I think.
Order. Order. She has raised a point of order and is directed to me, and I must make a ruling. Unless you want to make a ruling yourselves. I will make a ruling later on that one. Honorable Senator, proceed.
Master zvenyu, Mr. President, ndangachida kuti inini munoona kuti nyika ino yanga ine dambudziko climate change yakaita kuti mvura isanai, asi nemuono wapresident vakaita kuti ikwe kunge kuine inonzi pfumvudza intwasa yakararamisa mhuri yeZimbabwe. Hazvingoitwi chete nemunhu anenge asina muono unoenderera mberi wekuti iko vanhu vadye vachiguta, nekuti tese kuti tive muno tinenge takadya, tinenge takaguta. Asi kana kwazoita nzara, kunyanya kumaruva kunova nevanhu vakawanda vatinomiririra tiri muno, dambudziko iroro rakaitwa kuti riderere kuchipuhwa kuti iko ma-inputs anenge achipuhwa, vanhu vachipuhwa zvekurimisa. Kana vapuhwa zvekurimisa, wonzi iko ukachera apa ndo pauchadya nemhuri yako, ukachera apa ndo zvauchaendawo kunotengesa kuti mhuri yako irarame, kuti iwewo uwane sipo. Nekuti tese toda kugeza, mukaona machenera takaita muno tese izvi zvindoda kuti togeza zviri pamberi mberi, nekuti iko tinenge tiine tawana mari yekutenga kuti tizvishambidze. Saka Mr. President, ine hangu ndinoda kuti nditi mukuru wedu, president wedu vaMnangagwa, iko zvinezvi zvavarivo vava chairman weSADC, zviri kureva kuti iko kubudirira kuri kuita munyika muno, naidzo dzimwe nyika dzeSADC dzavari kutungamirira vanenge vakuindisa njere dzavo dzichinobatsirawo nyika idzodzo dzeSADC, kuti iko kana tichiti tiri veSADC zvinoreva kuti iko tese tinenge tabudirira tiri 16 countries dziri muSADC. Saka ndoda kuti ndingotenda vamavhenyengwa, ndoda kuti ndingotenda honorable mavhenyengwa vakaunza motion iyoyi yekukorokotedza mukuru wedu wenyika. Ndinoda kuti nditi makorokoto, His Excellency President E.D. Mnangagwa, rambai muchienderera mberi nekugona kwenyu. Maiti henyu, Mr. President.
Ndinotenda zvikuru nemashoko enyu, Honorable Senator Tongogara, kukorokotedza mutungamiriri wedu wenyika nekutora kwakaita chigaro. Guy, at this moment, I would like to recognize Honorable Senator Mavunga to adjourn the debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the debate do now adjourn.
It has been moved that the debate be now adjourned. Is there any debate? I put the question that the debate be now adjourned. Those who are of that opinion will say aye. Those who have the contrary opinion will say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The question is accordingly affirmed, and the debate is adjourned. To what the Honourable Minister?
To Tuesday next week, Mr. President.
Thank you. Honourable members, as earlier pronounced by the Deputy President, I would like to recognize the presence in the President of the Senate's gallery of women leaders from Sekero constituency and Women's Coalition of Zimbabwe, who are visiting to understand the role of Parliament, and the Zimbabwe Women Parliamentary Caucus in advocating for women and girls' rights. They are in our gallery. You are welcome. I now recognize Honourable Minister Mavunga. You are all aware, Honourable members, that a request to have a ministerial statement from the Minister of War Veterans Affairs came from this House, and accordingly we requested that she come and give a ministerial statement with regards to sons of the war veterans. Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to update this august House on the general welfare of veterans of the liberation struggle. Let me acknowledge from the very beginning the commitment by His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Comrade Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa, to the welfare of veterans as shown by the establishment of a full ministry of Veterans of the Liberation Struggle Affairs on 11 September 2023. In handling war veterans affairs, the ministry is guided by the Constitution of Zimbabwe. The preamble to the Constitution of Zimbabwe exalts and extols the brave men and women who sacrificed their lives during the Chimrenga Umvukela national liberation struggles. Section 3 of the Constitution upholds the recognition of and respect for the liberation struggle as one of the country's founding values and principles. In addition, Section 23 goes further to indicate that the state and all institutions of government must accord due respect, honor, and recognition to veterans of the liberation struggle, and that the state must take reasonable measures, including legislative measures, for the welfare and economic empowerment of these veterans. Furthermore, Section 84 elevates the recognition, respect, and entitlement of veterans to fundamental and entrenched rights. The Constitution, therefore, entrenches the enduring values of freedom and independence brought about by veterans. Their sacrifices are the foundation upon which the freedom that Zimbabweans enjoy today is built. Based on these constitutional provisions, the ministry administers 3 acts of parliament that deal with the welfare and empowerment of veterans. These are the Veterans of the Liberation Struggle Act, Chapter 1712, the National Heroes Act, Chapter 1016, and the War Victims Compensation Act, Chapter 1116. The rights of veterans of the liberation struggle. Mr. President, despite the entitlement of veterans to due recognition for their contribution to the liberation of Zimbabwe. It is disturbing to note that veterans are often overlooked at national events such as Independence Day and Heroes Day commemorations. These occasions should serve as platforms to celebrate surviving heroes and heroines. To this end, the ministry is actively collaborating with other ministries to ensure that veterans receive the honor they deserve at such events, as it is the norm the world over. Government has already demonstrated its sincere commitment, as exemplified by the prominence given to veterans during the 2024 Independence Day, Heroes and Defense Forces Day celebrations. As part of the recognition, the issuing of awards resumed in 2023, and an additional 2,000 medals were conferred during the 2024 National Heroes Day celebrations. Government is committed to continuing this process in the coming years and is actively seeking solutions to deal with the current huge backlog. To further enhance the visibility and respect of our veterans in public spaces, such as transport, banking halls, hospitals, my ministry is working on the introduction of appropriate identification and is consulting widely on its nature. The ministry believes that this initiative will significantly encourage Zimbabweans to give veterans the respect and honor that they rightfully deserve. Mr. President, honorable members, our veterans have given us so much for Zimbabwe. It is government's duty to ensure they are respected, honored, and recognized appropriately. On mop-up vetting of war collaborators and non-combatant cadres, Mr. President, it is crucial to point out that before any rights can be conferred, the individuals so entitled should be identified and their credentials ascertained. Whilst war veterans and ex-political prisoners, detainees and restrictees are enjoying some of the rights such as pensions and access to medical care, war collaborators and non-combatant cadres are not receiving anything because the vetting process is still underway. A total of 110,645 war collaborators and 10,022 non-combatant cadres were provisionally successfully vetted during the vetting exercise that was conducted in 2022. The financial resources required for the vetting exercise, as well as the huge numbers that turned up, meant that not all applicants could be vetted. As a result, 93,363 individuals were not vetted. This, therefore, necessitated that a follow-up be undertaken to complete the exercise. To this end, following Parliament's intervention at the 2024 pre-budget workshop in November last year, I am pleased to inform you that Treasury made an allocation in the current financial year, and the mop-up vetting exercise commenced yesterday, 25 September 2024, and is scheduled to end on 4 October 2024. On statutory benefits and general welfare, medical benefits, Mr. President, the ministry continues to provide medical benefits to war veterans and their dependents at government hospitals or at private health institutions, as well as outside the country on referral. Veterans are aging and thus more prone to age-related health complications that require a robust health service delivery system. Several veterans are undergoing dialysis chemotherapy, and physiotherapy sessions. These procedures are highly specialized and costly. Due to the rising prevalence of non-communicable diseases, it is anticipated that the number of such patients will increase in future. The ministry has already commenced a nationwide screening program for NCDs across the country. This will help to detect diseases early. So far, screening exercises have been conducted in Mashonaland Central, Mashonaland West, and Harare Metropolitan Provinces, with support from the Zimbabwe Defense Forces, the Ministry of Health and Child Care, as well as the Public Service Medical Aid Society. The total number of those screened stands at 1,440. The Ministry of Health and Child Care has already approved our request to give preferential treatment to veterans at government hospitals. I held a meeting with the Minister of Health and Child Care where we discussed medical benefits. Whilst the Ministry of Health and Child Care is facing its own challenges, they assured us that they will prioritize veterans in their institutions. On its part, the Ministry of Veterans of the Liberation Struggle Affairs will continue to explore ways of improving the delivery of health services to veterans. This includes the establishment of a medical aid scheme which has been under consideration for some time. On funeral benefits, currently bereaved families are receiving $500 as funeral grant payable in local currency at the prevailing exchange rate. This figure is inadequate to cater for all the funeral expenses, currently estimated at $2,545 for local burials and $3,714 for out-of-town burials. As a result, relatives end up contributing to funeral expenses. This does not augur well for the respect that we should give to our veterans. The ministry is engaging the relevant authorities on improving the amount of funeral grants. The ministry hopes that the issue will be resolved soon. On educational benefits, the amount of educational fees is pegged at the level charged by the government schools and institutions. Parents who send their children to private schools or outside the country pay the difference. The number of students has decreased significantly from 14,000 in 2021 to the current figure of 6,395. Despite the drop in numbers, the cost of education has increased since then. The number of students enrolled in secondary schools, colleges, and universities has gradually increased over the years to the current figure of 4,107, with a large proportion of them requiring boarding facilities. These institutions naturally charge higher fees than primary schools, and their fees have increased due to the economic situation and the rising cost of basic commodities. Mr. President, my ministry will soon make amendments to existing legislation to address inconsistencies in the legislation where the Act provides for assistance for higher and tertiary education to veterans' dependents only when the applicants commence studies below 18 years. In the majority of cases, students enroll for higher and tertiary education when they are over 18 years, thereby failing to access support under this Act. There is need to amend the relevant statutory instrument so that children of war veterans above the age of 18 years can access further education opportunities. The current legislation also provides that students who are sponsored should have commenced their studies whilst below the age of 18 years and should not have taken a break for more than one continuous year after completing their secondary education. The assumption at the time of promulgating this legislation was that students enroll at colleges and universities after completing their primary and secondary education, which they commence whilst below the age of 18. Although this is the case with the majority of the students, there are practical challenges in that some students spend more than 1 year after completing their secondary education before they are accepted at colleges and universities. In addition, there are also challenges when, for some reason, veterans elect to pay for their children whilst attending primary and secondary education, but wish to be assisted when students enroll at colleges and universities, by which time they will be above 18 years of age. The proposed amendment will deal with these inconsistencies and also provide that students can be sponsored up to doctorate level if they so wish. Further, the amendment will also stipulate that veterans' children will not be kicked out of school for late payment of fees. The major challenge in paying school fees on time is that of funding, which results in delays from time to time. That notwithstanding, I wish to thank the Ministry of Finance, Economic Development and Investment Promotion for their support given the current economic situation. The Ministry is currently in the process of clearing school fees arrears for the first term of 2024, following the recent injection of funds. Mr. President, the Ministry enjoys a lot of support from the Ministry of Higher and Tertiary Education, Science, Innovation and Technology Development in this regard, as well as the tertiary institutions themselves. The same applies to the Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education. As I stated, the Ministry is in the process of clearing arrears for the first term of 2024 whilst the students are learning. In our interaction with the tertiary institutions, we appreciate the financial challenges that they face and have worked out payment arrangements. Improvement in monthly pensions. Mr. President, there has been substantial discussion around the improvement of the monthly pension for war veterans and ex-political prisoners, detainees and restrictees. The Ministry sincerely appreciates the recommendation made by the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Defense, Home Affairs, Security Services and War Veterans that war veterans and ex-political detainees and restrictees receive pensions equivalent to the salary of a warrant officer class 1. Prior to this recommendation, we had already engaged Treasury on the matter. The Ministry is of the view that the salary of a warrant officer class 1 is the barest minimum. Veterans deserve much more, given their contribution to our freedom, coupled with their advanced age. The youngest veterans are 63 years old and are now susceptible to age-related challenges. This means that they have now limited capacity to fend for themselves compared to the situation in 1997 when the current benefits were determined. They deserve to be looked after more. Resumption of the payment of war victims' compensation. The Ministry intends to resume payment of war victims' compensation that was stopped in 1998 following the establishment of the Chichikausiku Commission of Inquiry. In this regard, 4 major exercises are earmarked for implementation as follows. Amending the War Victims Compensation Act, Chapter 1116, to accommodate those who continue to be injured by landmines after the end of the war. Currently, the Act covers the period 1 January 1962 to 29 February 1980. The principles have already been submitted to Cabinet Secretariat. Activating more than 17,000 dormant files. This may necessitate sending some clients for reassessments. Conscientizing individuals who deserve compensation but are not aware of their entitlements. 4, establishing boarding houses for war victims where they will be housed when they come for treatment. The project will start in Harare before cascading to Bulawayo and other cities. Registration and payment of state assistance to heroes' dependents. Mr. President, a lot of veterans and dependents of our dear departed national heroes, National Liberation War and Liberation heroes and heroines are not aware of their entitlements. There is need for publicity on a massive scale to make them aware of their benefits and subsequently register them. Accordingly, the National Heroes Dependents Assistance Board is conducting full-scale awareness and registration workshops of heroes and heroines dependents across the country. So far, 3 provinces, Mashonaland East, Matabeleland South, and Midlands have been covered. This will pave way for the payment of state assistance as defined in the National Heroes Act, Chapter 1016. Economic empowerment programs. 20% quota on gazetted land and rampant evictions of, from farms and mines. Mr. President, veterans went to war to reclaim our land. Despite their pivotal role in the land reform program, many veterans still do not have land. War veterans require land to enable them partake in economic empowerment programs. Unfortunately, those who have the land are facing severe challenges in accessing loans from banks because they do not have collateral and security of tenure. This is further exacerbated by rampant evictions from their allocated land. This has triggered a national outcry among the veterans. Land allocated to war veterans and children of war veterans must not be taken away from them, since it is their heritage which they fought for and sacrificed their lives. To address these pressing issues, I convened a meeting with the Minister of Lands, Agriculture, Fisheries, Water and Rural Development alongside key officials to discuss these matters in detail. A technical committee was established to tackle these challenges and put an end to these wanton evictions. Veterans also face similar challenges in the mining sector. To this end, I held a similar meeting with the Minister of Mines and Mining Development, resulting in the formation of another technical committee to resolve these mining issues. We are hopeful that this committee will rectify these challenges and safeguard veterans' mining claims. Additionally, my ministry recommends implementing the 20% quota for veterans in other sectors of the economy to ensure they receive their fair share of opportunities. The necessary amendments to the existing statutes to effect this have already been initiated and submitted to Cabinet Secretariat. We owe our veterans not just our gratitude, but tangible support and protection. It is imperative that we take decisive action to ensure they receive unfettered access to the land and other resources they fought for and deserve. Veterans Investment Corporation, VIC. His Excellency the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa, donated several assets for the economic empowerment of veterans on 12 June 2021 during the launch of the vetting program for war collaborators and non-combatant cadres. These assets were in the form of 8 institutional farms, 32 mining claims, as well as shelf companies that were going to be managed under an investment vehicle, Veterans Investment Corporation, VIC, established under the Veterans of the Liberation Struggle Fund. This subsequently led to the appointment of the Veterans Investment Corporation Board on 1 November 2021. Since its launch, VIC conducted an assessment of the mining claims and firms in 2022 and 2023 in order to develop a work plan. As a result of these assessments, the company has now initiated engagements with potential investors who are interested in mining quartz, lithium, gold, and other minerals across the country. Through an interministerial engagement between my ministry and the Ministry of Mines and Mining Development, the process of drafting guidelines for mining joint ventures between VIC and investors, both foreign and local, is being finalized. Regarding farming, VIC is working with a team of experts from the Ministry of Lands, Agriculture, Fisheries, Water and Rural Development in preparation for the 2024 summer season that is about to start. The team was constituted following ongoing bilateral engagements between the Ministers of Lands, Agriculture, Fisheries, Water and Rural Development and Veterans of the Liberation Struggle Affairs, Ministries' direct interventions. Apart from working through investment vehicles, economic empowerment is also achieved through direct interventions by the ministry in the form of skills training and provision of self-help loans. In order to adequately prepare veterans and their dependents to drive economic progress and development across various sectors, the ministry is implementing initiatives aimed at empowering veterans with the knowledge they need to enhance productivity. In 2023, 1,504 veterans underwent short agriculture-related courses. Another 1,400 veterans will undergo similar training before the end of the year. The training will enable veterans to contribute significantly to food security and the agriculture sector's performance. Further, the ministry continues to extend its support to the veterans who have mining claims. With Zimbabwe's rich mineral resource base and untapped potential, the mining sector presents immense opportunities for economic growth and prosperity. Through strategic interventions, including capacity building, regulatory compliance assistance, and access to financing where possible, the ministry assists veterans to unlock the full potential of their mining assets while adhering to best practices. In addition, the ministry provides tailored support programs such as project appraisals that assist veterans to start their businesses across various sectors. This will not only stimulate economic diversification, but also lead to increased employment creation opportunities. In conclusion, Mr. President, honorable members, I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to brief this august House on issues relating to the general welfare of veterans of the liberation struggle. These regular discussions will ensure that Senate will fully comprehend veterans' issues and raise them at various fora. This support is critical going forward. Without support, the welfare and economic empowerment objectives that the ministry wishes to pursue will remain elusive. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for such a detailed ministerial statement. I will afford honorable senators a chance to seek any clarification from the ministerial statement, if any. I recognize Honorable Senator Zindi.
Thank you, Mr. President. While I applaud the Minister for a very detailed ministerial statement, but through you, Mr. President, I'm troubled. I feel my tummy churning each time I hear about the issue of war veterans. Every person understands the sacrifices that war veterans went through in order for all of us to be seated in this parliament. It is through the sacrifices of all these war veterans. My surprise, more than 40 years after independence, we are still talking about the welfare of war veterans. But how is that? When we are seated in suits and everything, we are like we are today in this house. Hence, as I said, it churns my stomach. In addition, for the clarification, Mr. President, it is the same government very much aware of the welfare of the war veterans. Why would we see the same government having to repossess or to take farms from the war veterans whom they have actually allocated, while there is even an instrument that protects that war veterans' lands in the Constitution? It should never be repossessed by the government. How does that happen? I thank you.
Just take note, Honorable Minister. Honorable Senator Moyo, then Honorable Senator Nube, and Honorable Senator Ndlovu.
Ngiyabonga President ukuthola leli thuba ukubana ngizwisise ku minister indaba ezinye.
Order. Before you proceed, let me make it clear here. We are not debating the ministerial statement. We are only seeking clarification where it has not been very clear, so the minister clarifies. Why?
Siyabonga President. Ngisukumile nje minister ngifuna ukuzwisisa kule ndaba ezimbili maybe yodwa ingilahlile. Eyakuqala ukuthi nxa sisiyalwela inkululeko sinabalweli benkululeko abasala egangeni. Bona ngani ngazange ngikhulume ngako ukuthi ukuze bebekwe isizotha ezweni labo ingaba kukhona yini elikuzamayo, bese ngisithi kulabazali eloke bevuka ekseni becabanga ukuthi laba abalweli benkululeko abasala egangeni bazababona, ingaba bona amancedwa njani. Eyokugcina ukuthi sile 40 years njengobana usenator ekhuluma abayibo abasiphetheyo babelwela inkululeko siloke sizwa for 40 years lokho abantu bevethwa, ingaba sivetha abantu abaleminyaka emingaki. Ngiyabonga.
Yes, these are the issues coming through live from the Senate session today, which of course we've witnessed much of at the time that we were in the Senate today. I've seen the Honorable Senators congratulating His Excellence on technical analysis of what other regions are doing, and as far as issues around education, I've heard Honorable Senators talking about Zimbabwe having education 5.0, having the agricultural sector, which is there was also a ministerial statement presented by the Minister of War Veterans explaining especially on the issues on the welfare for these children of the war veterans, what is being done by the government, what is the policy position, how much are they being given. And currently, as we round off this particular live broadcast, the senators are now seeking clarity on some of the issues that might not have been cleared in that particular ministerial statement. But yes, that's what took place in today's edition of this Senate session. From myself, Ian Wambe, the crew behind the scenes, this is the end of today's live broadcast.